Did you get that big crappy robot that claps? You know that little
I just
big
saw them
crappy.
today.
The one they have like outside pachinko parlors.
big crappy, right?
Yeah, I like those
It
guys.
just craps and claps and
God, they're so annoying.
Yeah, I know, but I kind of love them. Like if they told me, like God, as our friend,
would
God
you rather have
Jesus,
God Jesus or big crappy? Like which
I would, I wouldn't know.
Choose
what
your
to
fighter.
choose.
choose your fighter.
I trust
yeah.
them both equally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're logging back into our podcast space here.
We're back here with Will, esteemed fashion designer.
Hello again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for another episode here.
You like those?
I think they're pretty good, yeah.
I got
Reminds
those at
me-
a truck stop. They were
Getting a
$20.
whiskey tinted outlook on things here.
I
Yeah.
know, they're so nice.
Reminds me of who's that character from Metal Gear Solid that knows this like revolver ocelot or
Revolver
something?
Ocelot. Yeah, dude. Or the guy from Dazed and Confused. Not Dazed and Confused. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Hunter S. Thompson,
played
Hunter S.
by
Thompson.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
Do you know that Bill Murray also played him in an earlier film version of that?
in the like same film, different version, or what? Like,
It was a film about Hunter S. Thompson from like, I think it's called Where the Buffalo Roam from like 1982, I think it was. I haven't actually seen this, but I just found out that this existed and I was like, Bill Murray playing Hunter S. Thompson. It's kind of an interesting idea. I do want to see it at some point. I mean, I'm sure people watching this have seen it.
What were we talking about on the last one? I feel like we left things on a interesting
cliffhanger.
note here.
We were talking about
Beau
Brummell,
Yeah.
and what can be done to, I don't know, save fashion and society from people ripping him off fourth hand. I guess.
So like maybe just to catch me up and also potentially the listener up, but okay, so Beau Brummell, like what was his declaration? I believe like he said that like men should only wear like kind of slate gray, dark olive green, black monochromes, like navy blue. Like that was the color palette he established, I believe, right? Where it's all very subdued kind of military colors. Am I right there?
Yeah, subdued colors, and also, well, I mean, he was like a dandy in the sense that he took an incredible amount of time getting ready every day. So it would take him like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to get properly prepared to like leave his chamber. And, he would have like his servants like dressing him and helping him bathe and like going through the routine and everything.
Like, he believed that his leather shoes should be polished with champagne, I believe, at the same time.
Something like that, right?
Like
so
he was pretty decadent still, I guess. Like he wasn't like for the people kind of.
Well, no. I mean, he was literally like a
aristocrat.
Right? Well, he was like a, I don't know, like a toady to, like he was like a hanger on to actual aristocrats, I guess.
Yeah, he wasn't a real aristocrat.
So I think he was like the friend of, can't even remember the name of the monarch, but if I remember right, he was kind of just basically living off one of these English monarchs that he was friends with, and I guess was advising on matters of sartorial matters, or clothing, fashion related things. But from what I can work, if I remember right, he fell out of favor, and he wasn't. I think it was like a huge gambler too. So if I remember right, he just died in awful poverty from syphilis, and because of course he had syphilis, because of course he did, right? So
they all did.
So yeah, so his face was rotting off, and he was poor as shit and couldn't afford much in the end anymore. So is this the kind of person we should be taking clothing lessons from? Or?
So how did he shape men's fashion so deeply? Like why did his ideas stick?
Well, again, he streamlined it. So he focused on quality materials over, I guess, like ostentation or like decoration.
That sounds good. I agree with that.
Well, to an extent, but if that gets watered down even more over
Mhm.
like an additional 300 years, then you kind of arrive at what we're at now, which is like everything's pretty boring and
baby blue, French terry knit cotton hoodies with the zipper is stuck.
There's
right?
nothing wrong with casual garments. The problem is that they're completely uniform in all aspects of adult life. You know, the uniform is completely gone, and any sense of like a formal dress is gone. You only wear a tuxedo to not even weddings.
Black tie events, basically, right?
Right.
So what's
And
that?
those don't even fucking exist in Tokyo. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, you have a mourning coat when the emperor is anointed and when a state official dies.
So I mean, they keep uniforms alive in Japan. Kind of playing devil's advocate here, I guess. But so yeah, like train conductor people, right? They're uniformed up, right?
And thank God for it. Seriously.
Imagine if the guy piloting the train was like wearing, I don't know, sweats or something.
sweatpants or something.
Yeah.
Dude,
Sweatpants and Crocs.
what world would we be living in? Good Christ.
Well, another interesting question is like what even like people in the Beau Brummell area, like if they could look at us now, like what social class do you think they would assume we were based on how we're dressed? Like if they saw us wearing denim jeans and sneakers and hoodies and stuff, like what like do you think they would assume that we were like people of importance?
That's a good question.
Or not?
I don't know. Forward like chronicity is like literally impossible to predict. Like that's a tough one. We're so alienated. Like we're so many like revolutions in clothing.
Well, true, but
removed
just
from them
just like if they were
if I
like
had to guess-
shown a video of us right now, like do you think they would assume?
Yeah, probably quite poor.
Yeah.
Probably quite poor.
So do you think they would assume that we were like aristocrats or important artisans or like, you know, people of substance or something?
They'd probably say, "Why is there a naked woman on my TV screen?" They would say, on this digital box. They would. I think that our level of casual clothing from their perspective would be kind of frightening, and like they wouldn't have the language. They would have no concept of the language that we're using to communicate ourselves through fashion at this stage. I don't know what the closest thing would be. Like even poor people didn't dress like this, so they would probably assume we're poor. Or maybe if they were clever, they would say maybe they're quite rich because they're, you know, only the real nobility can wear what they desire.
Yeah, I think they probably would assume that we were like very menial workers of some kind.
Yeah.
Like I definitely don't think they would. Again, I'm just hazarding a guess here, but like I certainly don't think they would assume that we were like important people of any kind, or like they probably wouldn't assume that we were like either aristocrats or anyone of, I don't know, like what they would probably call substance, if not like breeding or something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a loaded term at the moment. But and you know, I think you could think about that and say, well, so what? Like, isn't that the point? Like, isn't you know, some democratization or I don't know, democracy of this kind of stuff an improvement? And it could be, but is there something that's maybe lost at the same time, or is there something which and again, I think you could apply this to like actual aristocrats at present. I always think of this when I see like there's photographs of like the royal couple in England meeting the royal couple of like Bhutan or something.
Yeah.
And just like comparing the way that they're dressed, and like again, the Bhutan couple is dressed in this like incredibly lavish, colorful, kind of elaborate styles, and the British royal family again is just wearing basically like, you know, hand-me-down Beau Brummell kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, quotation marks, tasteful style clothing end quotation marks, I guess.
I think that if I had a beef with this, it's really just the way that casual clothes have developed since Brummell. Because I think that, what we're wearing today is just as downhill from the 1930s work suit as that suit was downstream from Brummell. And really, it's like I'm not opposed to casual clothes. I'm opposed to the total universalization and the complete, there's a point to be said. You mentioned democratization of fashion, which is actually, I agree with, is great. And it allows, you can wear whatever the fuck you want. You can express yourself however you desire. But nobody, it's like, it's a perennial problem with technology, to be honest, because, the washing machine saved the housewife dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours over the course of a year of labor. And so now you have all this free time. Okay, what do you use that for? You presume, okay, we're going to maintain the standard of living that we currently have, and now I just have free time. But actually, that's not the case. That free time gets siphoned into other things that become
like
just
TikTok,
as useless. Like TikTok, like fucking TikTok or television.
The housewife is watching TikTok. Is that what's going on?
The housewife is watching goddamn baby, whatever the fuck that bear video is.
Hey Bear.
Hey Bear. All right.
The iPad baby.
The iPad baby. And the housewife is just over the shoulder of the baby, just equally hypnotized. But not, that's modern day, but in the 1960s, they were watching TV or I don't think that it actually happened to open up that much leisure. I think it gets filled up with kind of shit, weak, watered down garbage leisure. And that's the same problem with clothes. Yes, we have no more dress codes anymore. There is no standards by which you will be judged by your clothes, except, on an individual basis by somebody passing you and just giving you a smirk across the street. But you can wear whatever the fuck you want. You can wear a tuxedo every single day if you want it. Maybe you don't agree with the tuxedo conceptually, but you could wear one if you want. If you want to dress like a 17th century pirate, you can. You actually literally can. And it's never been easier to procure those clothes than there is right now. And yet nobody does it. Everybody opts for the same bland, forgettable, basic shit, and it's cookie cutter as fuck. How many times am I walking around Shinjuku and I see a Japanese dude with the same kind of bowl cut type hair with a white t-shirt that goes down past his crotch and skinny jeans and some big fat sneakers with a gold chain? It's like, your ancestors died so that you were allowed to wear what you're wearing right now, and you chose
so that you're allowed to basically debase yourself in public, right? Is one way I would look at it. Is by choosing these very prefab kind of looks, you're sort of embarrassing yourself in public or degrading yourself.
No, you're not embarrassing yourself. You're not
embarrassing yourself enough. Maybe.
No, they're not embarrassing themselves at all. They are conforming to a general trend. They're conforming. It's conformism.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and I think that's even an interesting word because there's a sense in which in-group conformity can be used to express distinctiveness, but if it becomes too amorphous or kind of watered down, then there's no real identity or distinctiveness of any kind. And I think that's sort of where fast fashion comes in, is creating this kind of universal, global kind of acceptable look, which is really maybe nothing, So
it's nothing. It's like dust.
So that's kind of the point where I think a lot of this Neo Decadence and other kind of stuff picks up is the idea of viable subcultures is kind of like gone by the wayside. So there's no longer any real, uniformity of or unity of fashion and subculture or music or any other kinds of things which haven't kind of degenerated to these like photocopy. Well, that's kind of what we were talking about. Talking shit about punk in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
Where like it's just kind of embarrassing at this point, where it's like not really. It certainly shouldn't. I mean, again, you're what, like 26, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it certainly shouldn't mean anything more to you than like, I don't know, flappers or like
it's distant past.
Teddy boys or something.
Yeah.
Like all these things from the 50s or 40s. It certainly should seem as embarrassing and outdated.
Well, even them, that was in the period where mass production fashion and pret-a-porter was coming into vogue, and it was now financially possible to mass create these things for people. But punk very quickly became, like all subcultures, at least in the last 40 years, are consumer classes, really. And punk became that. Punk very much became a consumer. Like, how do you pitch? Like, I mean, it started as a legit thing. I understand that, and I can respect that. But especially today, if it's insofar as you can see, we don't have subcultures. We have XXX girl or XXX core, and that shit is like a direct marketing campaign to construct an identity to then sell the clothes to. Cottage core. Oh, I like this. And then you look at it, and then you get another recommendation. You get another recommendation. You get another recommendation. And then eventually you buy some clothes, you buy some products, you buy a candle, you buy whatever fucking pan or boiled egg holder thing that they're selling you. And then now it's your identity, and you identify as a subculture, quotes, big fat quotes, and it's a totally manufactured thing. It's a completely fake fucking thing.
So when did that start? Was Hypebeast manufactured, or was that grassroots?
Totally fucking fake.
Do you think it was completely manufactured
Totally
from the
fake.
top down?
I don't think it's manufactured from the top down like that intensely. But
it
I think
was certainly picked up by the brands leaned into it very heavily quite quickly, right?
Yeah, because people were willing to pay.
Yeah.
And they realized, okay, there's like a thing here. They both cycle into each other to create this thing. Obviously, it can't be completely top down because you need people to buy into it.
Right. But so is cottage core top down?
Fuck yes.
You think that was completely just an artificial insemination?
Cottage core is like fake as fuck.
Just TikTok.
It doesn't exist. It does not exist. It's not real. It is not even 1% real.
No one's wearing cottage core is what you're saying.
No one, cottage core, fundamentally,
Or
there is
like
no
as a identity.
real thing of cottage core. It's only digital. You know what is actually similar to this is the Neo Catholics. The Neo Catholics.
Okay.
There's this big movement. I see it. Studying politics, we kind of watched this a little bit over the past few years, and I remember it kind of emerging in like COVID era, a little bit like 2021.
Where in Canada, in US? Or
all over. Well, I don't know.
North
it's
America?
online, so it's not really national, is it? But
Neo-Catholic, okay.
So you have these people who are like...
you mean the sort of people who, like, suddenly people are religious on Twitter or whatever?
People are religious on Twitter.
I call these... in Neo Decadence, we call these Huysmans flippers, which is when they do kind of like a trad flip.
Yeah.
To usually when their testosterone starts flagging or whatever, and
but they're young people.
Some of them, yeah. So I mean, their hormone levels might be a bit out of whack due to microplastics or something. Anyway, even if they're young.
So maybe it's not their fault.
I think there's a correlation to be made with spiritual resolutions and prevailing hormone levels. I think there may be
well, there's no conviction. There's no constitution. It's a flip based on being lost, right? And what's sad about this kind of Huysman flip is that it's coming from a point of like you didn't even go extreme at all. Right, you had a few parties, you got drunk, and maybe fucked a few girls, and now you're like oh my God, I need to go become a Catholic. No one in your family's Catholic. You were never
Right,
born
yeah,
Catholic.
yeah,
You were
yeah.
not raised Catholic. And you're like 21 and now you're online like making like Jesus hype videos.
I'm glad that we can call this out, and like I think one of my hobbies over the past few months or maybe a year is mercilessly ridiculing people for doing this and
It's insane.
completely deriding their pseudo convictions, I would say, which are completely worthless.
Like it's actually ridiculous. My family, I remember when I like my whole extended family is all Catholic, and I went to church as a kid, like every week. We went to mass, we went to Easter mass, we did all that Catholic shit. My parents were both really Catholic, and I think that they both kind of got tired of the church and they had issues with it on a personal level, and then they were like, okay, we're kind of backing off this. Now that I don't think either of them would call themselves Catholic anymore, but it was my culture growing up. And, the idea that you have these people who are like, no motherfucker in the Catholic, at any of those Catholic churches that I went to would be able to describe like all these niche schisms in the church from like 1163 where Bishop dickhead like fucking said something
Bishop
about
pedophile or
Bishop pedophile
Bishop
boy
child fucker,
boy cocksucker,
yeah.
right? Like none of these got like this, and they're able to describe in explicit detail every single.
You're talking about the online neo-Catholics.
The online Catholics, and this is going to wrap around to a point about fashion, but these people are like looking for an identity. And they're constructing it through extremist religious identification. And it comes from a place of just being fucking lost. And I think that there's a unique sense of what NUE?
Right, yeah.
NUE. That's occurred in the internet age among young people who are just kind of being berated and destroyed by the algorithm and their devices, which they're being confronted with every single day. So it's leading people to partake in these extreme paths, and they're like a Catholic, and they're like women are wearing a veil going to mass. It's like, who the fuck does this? No one goes to mass wearing a veil. That's
right,
that's like 1930.
So is it just performative for a TikTok?
That's it.
Yeah,
but
it's literally just for the recording, right?
But then that's like their presentation to the world. We don't have insight into their brain. I doubt that they're being sincere, but then it ripples and another person reposts that what they're doing, and then another person does it, and another person does it. And now you have hundreds of thousands of, not hundreds of, Jesus, please God, no, not hundreds of thousands, like thousands and thousands of these fuckers being like, oh yes, like I love Mary, praise be to Mary, the mother, the Virgin Savior. It's like, oh my, shut the fuck up.
My culture is not a costume.
Seriously, and I'm not a Catholic.
Clap emoji.
Seriously.
I think if you look at this historically, where this came from, I mean, like again, we see a very similar. We see a very similar pattern in the 19th century, which is where, again, the Huysman, the writer, if you've read Audubon, right?
Haven't read
the
it.
classic decadent book. So Huysman himself was, he was rocking along writing books about, prostitutes and Satan and drugs and stuff, right? And so he wrote this rather extreme book, Audubon, about this guy who kind of just relocates himself to the countryside and just goes really, deep into kind of niche interests, right? So there's another French writer, Barbe d'Orvie, I think it's who reviewed this, and again, he's a super Catholic dandy kind of asshole writer, probably pretty flamboyant, who reviewed this Huysman book, and he says something like, this is all very admirably, grotesque and decadent, but after writing this kind of book, there's only really two choices: the barrel of a pistol or the foot of the cross, right? So he's basically saying, like, you basically got to either take the logical conclusion and commit suicide, or become trad Catholic, right?
Yeah.
So Huysmans read this and he thinks about it for a while, and he's like, well, guess I better become trad Catholic, right?
Yeah.
So and that's what happens, right? And then after that, his career is pretty much finished, because, like, who wants to read 300-page descriptions of cathedrals and
It's
becoming
insane.
a monk, right? So so this is, and that's kind of what he did, right? He basically became a monk for the rest of his days, and days of writing interesting books were kind of finished, right?
Yeah.
So and a lot of people in this similar positions. Well, Oscar Wilde too, right? After he was ruined by prison,
Yeah.
his health and his finances were ruined. So he was in bad health. So I think he actually converted, when he was close to dying, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of saw the dead, in the 19th century, we kind of saw the dead end that this led to. So are we really gonna repeat? I mean, I think there's that line about history repeating is the first time it's tragedy, and the second time it's kind of like a farce or a comedy, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're at the point where we're in the comedy point of can anyone really fucking take this that seriously?
I don't think we're
at
in the
this
same
point?
world as they were. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same planet.
I don't think it's the same planet. So I think, like, that's my attitude, is that we're very much at the farce or the comedy point where
Yeah.
I certainly don't think anyone should be taking this, like, TikTok trad trend seriously, or
I mean, is this
crazy.
just so going back to just sort of the repetition
Right.
in history, like what's that personality model, the generational model, where
Which one?
it's basically like 4 different kind of generational archetypes that cycle upon themselves,
Oh, is this the
where it's like the rebellious, and then kind of it flips traditional, and then
Are you gonna say that tough motherfuckers make good times
you
and
wouldn't
good times make weak
men,
bitches,
yeah,
and weak bitches make bad
this isn't
times?
the
Yeah.
Sekhmet hypothesis? It's not that either. There's some other
man, maybe
some other
vamp for a
thing
bit
that,
while I try and pull this up. But
yeah.
my core point basically is like, okay, history repeating itself. Maybe this is just part of the churn of culture. Like, is there anything surprising about trad Catholic or the trad flip or whatever Neo Catholic TikTok movement coming back up? Generational cycle vamp for a bit here while I. Did you find it, or are we just?
I think this is some other. This is like that. I'm okay. You're okay.
ChatGPT
time or
will
something,
save us here.
I do think it's important that we, like, sort of identify these resurgences of stupid ideas from the past. That are kind of being presented as revolutionary
Well,
ideas.
it's so flailing,
Yeah.
right? It's so pathetic. It's so fucking pathetic.
It is pathetic, right? And I think we should call it out, because, like, a lot of people are taking it entirely too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think we have, I would say, is like maybe I don't know, creators or writers or whatever, we have a duty to mercilessly mock it and hopefully destroy it.
Yeah.
I would
I would
say.
contribute to it.
Contribute to that. That's what I hope to do with a lot of the Neo Decadents, is just call out the absurdity of a lot of these trends, and hopefully put something better or more fun or interesting in their place, right? That's,
so just to pick up that thread, the framework I'm referring to is the fourth turning generational theory.
Turning. Okay.
Oh, I've heard of
developed
this,
by William Strauss.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. So what do we have there? We have the prophet, the idealist.
Okay. Yeah.
Grow up as indulged children and come of age as visionary leaders.
Okay, yeah.
Baby boomers, for example. We have the nomad, the reactive,
Yeah.
born during awakening, a time of spiritual upheaval.
Yeah.
They grow up as neglected, underprotected children and become pragmatic, independent adults. Generation X is an example.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess this does seem very mapped onto quite recent generations. I don't know if this is like a overall human trend but I guess you could analyze the past 100 years this way maybe. I don't know if this would play out in earlier generations. Although again, as we were just talking there, I think we do see some trends recurring, or certain earlier logics being played out from previous centuries over time in the present. Even though I think they're mostly pretty ridiculous, and we should get back to trying to come up with something better or more interesting.
Well, yeah, you got to look forward.
Yeah.
The looking back, like you're scared of the present, so you can like
Retreat to the past.
retreat to the past,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's pathetic. It
Yeah.
feels so weak, and we've made so much progress as a society to move in a certain direction. I don't know if we wanted to return to the fashion point and circle.
I think
back.
we do. I think we should return to it and
But
bring
all
things
that
back
was
home.
to illustrate the Tradcath was to illustrate kind of like the falseness of this aesthetic, and a lot of like our casual shit is equally just like not legit. Like
Yeah.
we have all these fuck, I forgot exactly what I was gonna say, but we have all these kind of like dress codes that are constructed through social media now.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that in like little microwaves, like little small, the cores and the girlies and the whatever. That shit, most of it is not real at all. Somebody put it together on a mood board and then like flushed it all over Instagram with ads and then paid influencers to do it. Like, I'm so skeptical of how legit and how organic a lot of these are. When you see people,
Kind of just like the "come get dressed with me" type videos.
Yes, literally
Okay.
that, or unboxing, or here's my thrift haul, or blah blah blah, or here's how to like become a, I don't know, hardcore girly.
Help me understand how you think this happens. So these are like micro influencer type accounts, right? So
Well, number one, everything, we now have insane trend prediction technology. There's like one or two companies that every single fashion brand is consulting to produce their next 2 years of clothes. Trend forecasters can forecast really accurately trends that are 2 years in the future. Everything that you're going to wear in 2 years from now, everything that's going to be in the store from 2 years from now is going to sell well, is already decided now.
And I mean, is this just part of this kind of baggy, skinny fashion dialectic where
Kind of, yeah.
like it's really just two polarities that flip back and forth, right?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated. There's that for sure, but there's also color. Are we getting more beige? Are we in the grayish era right now? It's like quiet luxury. How popular that really is up to question. Seems like a big
So it's quiet luxury, just the
like the
kinda,
row, like understate, no big logos.
logos,
It arose as a response to the big, huge logo mania of the
Kinda,
2010s.
yeah, hypebeast era, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
and then it's like, okay, that fucking is lame, and you look poor, and you look lower class, so we're not gonna wear that anymore.
Like Tommy Hilfiger.
Like Tommy
That's
Hilfiger,
for
big
sure.
fucking,
Yeah.
this, or the big polo logo, and the big Lacoste if you're a man, or women with big. Well, diesel is still weirdly cool, I guess, but
I feel like Tommy Hilfiger
But I
is
mean,
like the ultimate sort of like
This is that as well, right? Like ape,
Well,
right?
I'm wearing this. I always say that, like
Ironically.
I feel like I'm wearing this out of pure despair, and like I actually much like a suffering Christian monk, I'm scourging myself in miserable penitential flagellation by wearing these awful clothes here. Surely out of horror and protest and well, actually kind of laziness, but
Laziness is an easy
but
one,
I certainly wouldn't encourage anyone to like imitate what I'm wearing, because I'm literally like all of my energies are on other things, but I certainly feel that I'm dressed in extreme poverty and almost I don't know, despair or something.
The problem is it's your wardrobe.
Right.
You're picking a section out of your whole wardrobe that's already ready to go. You don't need to style it. You don't need to prepare anything. It's all washed. It's easy to put on. You just throw it on and walk out of the house. It's very efficient. It's super chill. And you don't even have to fucking take care of it. You can batter the shit out of that, what you're wearing. Me too. Not criticizing you at all. Like, we're in the same boat. And then, I just throw this in the wash and bob. There's your
Right.
logo.
Yeah. So, but I do think there's an element of that is an interesting point, which is I think like the sensible response a lot of people would have to this is like, well, if you feel this way, like, why aren't you like doing something about it, right? And I think that is a good point which could be made. And yeah, I mean, I do intend to hopefully keep leveling things up and trying to get interesting things developed, but it definitely does help to start from a point of like conceptualizing what that would look like in practice, right? And like where you'd start
Kind of. You
start
just gotta,
coming from with that.
you just gotta look.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've really loved the thrifting scene here.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously, real thrifting, like the bins, is kind of rare. So you go to boutique shops and little specialty shops, and you can get stuff that's pretty cheap, and stuff that I don't know. I've just found so many like magical pieces here in Tokyo.
Right. Yeah.
Like, for example, a really great one that I wore recently was a leather poncho with fringes along the whole thing.
That was
Okay.
thrifted.
A leather poncho.
That was
Yeah.
thrifted. Wow,
Thrifted. It cost 3,000 yen.
it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Looked the leather looked nice. Yeah, it was like a rough out new buck, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you see what I was
Yeah,
wearing?
yeah. You were at Justin's birthday. with
Yes,
it. Yeah.
yes. And I don't know what the leather was. It was some old piece of shit thing. It was like a complete garbage thing. I didn't even condition it or anything. And I literally just wore it. I stitched up some of the shoulder because it was coming apart, but that's all I added. And it was like, what a fucking insane statement piece. Now, you can't like only wear shit like that, but once like the like slow and steady and mindful consumption, you'll find interesting things that you can add to the to your wardrobe. And then once you have them, it's so simple. Just throw them on and run out the door. You don't. Once you have like a consolidated. I'm not a stylist. Okay, I'm not Mr. Style. Okay, but when you have like reliable pieces and you have a good through line that appears to you, you can put it all together and then get out of the house, and then there you go. You have something interesting to wear, and that ideally, if you've thoughtfully put together your wardrobe, the collection will reflect your values and your identity in some sense,
So if you were like, I think one way to maybe transition this a little bit to like more kind of speculative or areas of future development, like if you were trying to like create some sort of like subculture or something, like how do you think you would kind of go? Like, let's say you had access to impressionable youth that you could like kind of style or design or like push in certain directions. Like what would you do with that power if you had it? Or...
Well, subculture is funny because it always revolves. The fashion is kind of secondary to subculture. Subculture always arises from some prevailing ethos, and it's usually some kind of antithetical idea.
Some rejection of an idea.
It's a rejection. Right, So you need to find something that people are hating. So let's say we're like let's say we're anti-tech and we all just use flip phones, okay? For example.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever the fuck it is. Maybe we all would wear green, you know, I don't know. But you start there and then you kind of like you need to discover the through line, the ethos that you're trying to embody and communicate through the clothes using the language of fashion. And in this particular example, this is a little bit abstract, so it's hard to say. Usually it's around music, right? Or it's music, or it's like, I don't know, war time or some shit,
Right.
or
Yeah.
it's direct protest, or, you know, I'm thinking like subcultures in London, like a poetry subculture.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in my own case, like as a poet, I always start from like an instinctive position of just like horror and revulsion
Yeah.
when I like physically see other poets and like how they've chosen to present themselves. I just think,
Yeah.
like, how can you live with yourself if you're trying to create like serious literary art and you're like presenting yourself as such a like sloppy cliche?
Yeah.
Like, do you even fucking care that you're coming across this way?
Yeah.
Like, are you even aware of it? Like, I just, to me, that's always the instinctive position I take, to the extent that I did feel compelled to like write actual books and manifestos about this, where I was like, is this something that you're aware of, that you're coming across this outdated or kind of pathetic, I guess? So,
or put on.
or
some
put on,
cases.
yeah. And I still see this. I mean, like when I look at how people are presenting themselves in these spaces, and well, yeah, certainly London, I would say, is probably the most offensive, I would say. But New York does seem pretty bad too, and I'm always kind of disappointed when I see footage of readings or, you know, events in New York, and
Yeah.
again, it seems like they're stuck in this like kind of pseudo transgressive, like fake punk kind of
yeah.
headspace.
Yeah. And
I don't know
it's a bypassed era, and
I
they're
don't-
like returning back to
I
something.
think yeah,
dead.
if anyone's watching this in New York, like, can you just stop that? I mean, like, no one's impressed. Like, no one. It feels like it's like watching someone's old, I don't know, elderly uncle like furtively masturbating or something. I mean, it's just more pathetic and embarrassing. Like, no one
We're making enemies today.
no one thinks that it's like transgressive or like breaking new ground. I mean, it's just like embarrassing, really. So that's my own instinctive take, which again is maybe not really coming from a place of music, but certainly of poetry. Like, I think,
Yeah.
I feel like there has to be, I feel like I'm trapped in this kind of limited space of limited options, where there should be some new way for a poet to dress appropriately
Mhm.
that just doesn't exist at the moment. And I hope we could kind of maybe develop that, or even create it, or
Yeah.
push things in that space, maybe.
You need like, but it comes from a space. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I talked to Senate about it, about physicality
Okay. Yeah.
of us, of like the importance of material presence.
Right.
And that's kind of a really key thing. Like, fashion is so visual, you can't communicate it very easily through distance.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're not like all together on a regular basis
Yeah.
and meeting quite often and in groups where you're doing things together, it just can't work. Punks are like showing up at a music venue and like we're all wearing the same thing and we all see what each other are wearing, and I see, oh, that guy's cool. He put a fucking clothespin through his septum. I'm gonna do that next week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's subcultures are tough. Like, it runs on things that kind of aren't really that present anymore. And,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why they're all mostly dead, right? So
Yeah. So you think the lack of like locality or local community is maybe one?
yeah,
one
first
thing
you
that's-
need like a identifiable ethic that everybody's on board with. And then you need repetitive physical appearances of a massive group who all hold this idea and agree to meet, and something brings them to meet and feel the energy.
Makes sense. Yeah. Is this just water? Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, that's okay. And then you probably need some kind of unique, fashion what am I thinking? Some unique style offering, right?
Yeah.
That actually is captivating and holds attention and has something to say that follows that line. The actual design is really important. And if it doesn't, and you need all of that to work. And even if you had like let's say I had this suggestible group of children, I would need them all, if they didn't all agree with me on this digital tech thing, or like anti-cell phone, whatever the example was, and that they also have to agree to meet at a physical place. Which actually, considering if it was anti-cell phone, I guess is kind of understandable. That could work. And then they'd also have to agree on a specific language of fashion communication. And if all of those aren't met, if any of that fails, it's over. And then it needs to be continued and iterated upon repeatedly over time, and then disambiguated, and there's subgenres and stuff like that, right?
That's one thing when I was writing the Eiko proposal, which you contributed to as well. Kind of in the later stages of that, I was thinking like, what would be some sort of like speculative subcultures that we could project as developing, and then maybe actually kind of give a hand to actually develop, or sort of like planting some seeds, or like scattering some seeds of things which could maybe develop more, be taken in certain directions.
It's tough because Eiko, I imagine Eiko is existing completely separate to our reality.
Have we introduced this idea enough? How much did we talk about it previously?
I don't think we've really talked about it, but
I'll let you do that. I'm about to go pee for a second.
Yeah, we didn't really introduce it too much, but we sort of did come up with this idea of an alternative to the current Japanese imperial era, which is known as Reiwa, which I think most sensible people would agree has been kind of a boring disaster.
Yeah, for context, it started in
culture.
2019.
Yeah, 2019, right?
So what happened the following year, basically, right?
Yeah,
well, arguably November of that year, I believe, kind of COVID started.
So it was straight into COVID, and I think COVID was one big part of it, but I think there were like underlying trends of sort of stagnation and I want to say conformity, homogeneity.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like what happened between 2010 and 2019, basically, I think just smartphones took the fuck over. Basically,
fast fashion too.
Fast fashion and
smartphones certainly. And certainly, like at least from our perspective, a lot of the interesting sort of subcultural innovations of the Heisei period in Japan, which is basically 1989 to 2019, right? About 30 years, has certainly become much less visible, much less of a presence in the culture. And certainly things like Korean influence had taken over a lot more.
Yeah.
Whether that's fashion, whether that's music, whether that's all
food
kinds
as
of
well,
food as well, all kinds of areas. Which so we were kind of working on ways to conceptualize kind of an alternative that happens simultaneously.
And go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's a bit. Yeah.
And I guess so. The basis of that is just that in each era, Japanese era, is that what they're called?
Yeah, they're called eras.
Yeah. Like it,
or just periods, right?
Periods,
or eras, yeah.
like there's a kanji associated with it, right? There's a Japanese character associated with it, and in Japanese, the same kanji can have multiple different readings of it, right? And so that's where Eiko comes from, right? It's like an alternate reading of the same kanji.
Well, it's a different kanji.
It's a different kanji. My bad.
The thing is, like the individual scholar who chose the Reiwa kanji, I just don't really respect his scholarship. I don't really respect the Manyoshu, which is the poetic work that's taken from. Much more into the Kojiki, which is where the term Eiko is taken from.
So just to back up, Reiwa is like the one possible reading of it in English is kind of to command harmony, right? Or command peace, right?
We always kind of interpret it as like managed decline, I guess, right? That's sort of one way of looking at it is sort of like a commanded peace or commanded enforced harmony, I guess. Something like that. So I mean it's not a particularly auspicious term in any sense. So we started from the premise that Eiko was both more, I guess, like spiritually uplifting and also more appropriate.
And so Eiko comes from they had a pool of candidates that they were considering, right?
Possible candidates.
That was my confusion.
So Eiko can be interpreted to mean like kind of like vast glory, I guess, which seems more ambitious for anyone who's ambitious here. So we immediately started kind of trying to access this and conceptualize what would be occurring in this parallel or overlapping area of time. So the way I always think of it is that everything important is happening. All the important people are already in Eiko. So everything interesting and important is happening in Eiko. And then anytime someone is like, I don't know, going to a Korean style plastic surgery clinic, they're in Reiwa, right? And we don't have to worry about them too much because they're just often another parallel sort of time track or something, right?
Like a Twin Cities type of situation.
It's kind of a Twin Cities situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're there, but they're basically kind of already invisible, right?
Yeah, like
really, not really too important.
They're kind of translucent.
Translucent, yeah. They're a bit slippery.
It's a few
can't
images
really
come to mind.
Can't really perceive them, and just like these anonymous ghosts or something.
Yeah,
kind of
Sixth Sense,
kind
of territory.
Yeah.
No, but you know those ghosts. Those ghosts look like real people. Like these ones are like, you kind of, the sun. They walk in front of the sunlight, and you kind of like, oh shit, like I see right through you.
Yeah, I see right through you and your brands, right? So I think if you were having an enjoyable time in Eiko, what kind of things do you think would be like if you went to a party or something? Like, what do you think you would see, or what do you think would be happening
at a party?
Yeah,
damn.
Like if you're invited to like a secret party or something, like
a secret Eiko party.
What kind of things do you think would be happening there?
I feel like I'd open the bathroom and somebody would be banging inside.
Okay, yeah.
Spin the bottle. People are playing spin the bottle.
People are playing spin the bottle.
Yeah. People would be playing spin the
bottle.
Yeah.
People are not playing Cards Against Humanity.
Okay, yeah.
They're not doing that. It's like a bit, it's mostly Japanese, right? So I don't know. I feel like they're dancing. They're actually dancing.
Okay, yeah.
Even if it's a small party and there's not that many people, they're actually like getting down.
They're actually getting
down.
Like
quite like totally unconcerned with the people around them.
Okay, yeah.
And the lighting's really good. The lighting's great.
Lamps.
They're using lamps, maybe even candles. And if I would, dare say, but there's definitely an openness and a willingness. You go talk to someone you never met before, and they embrace you as if they've known you their whole life.
Right.
I'm seeing red velvet draping over an altar, perhaps.
Yeah, why not?
A table. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe that's the subculture. There's many subcultures in Eiko.
Yeah.
Maybe we're in like the neo fucking like Gregorian. We're in Gregorian chant techno music.
So
Right.
they're reviving that like period where that techno Gregorian like micro minute in the 90s is getting a,
Yeah, but now it's big. Now it's a
now
whole
it's a
thing.
whole thing. Okay.
You know, and there's girls showing up to the party with like sledded up, like like Gregorian monk outfits or whatever.
Right.
These chicks are shaving their heads, bro. It's crazy.
Okay, yeah.
I don't
yeah.
know.
So this is getting into quite interesting territory already.
This
right?
is like one
This would already
party. We
be
go to
more-
the next party. It's like a different subculture, different group of people.
Yeah.
But there's two. But both of these parties are happening in the same building.
Right.
Everyone's having parties all the time. They're having fun. People are enjoying fun. They're enjoying life.
Okay. And I think we established in the document that instead of smartphones, they have these like net phones.
Yeah.
Which are sort of like updated like clamshell phones.
Yeah.
But with kind of like modern processing power.
Right.
But people are still quite a little bit reticent. You know, they're still using like Mixi and like quite
I like that.
forums. They're using forums and Mixi and
You ask girls for their phone number and they give
Right.
it to you and then you call them.
Yeah, you have to like call up and kind of like or leave a message or something.
Yeah,
or,
you
like,
can text too, but it's not weird to call. If you
Yeah.
call a girl, she's not going to get anxious and
It's not
freak
gonna get
out.
anxious. Yeah.
She's going to say, "Oh my god, I'm so happy. Like he called me the other day. We talked for half an hour." Like,
And then she like ends up talking longer than you even intended.
yeah,
Like you're like, oh, I actually have things to do, and she's like still
kind of
unloading
on about some crazy
unloading
shit.
about some crazy
She
story.
just bought like a truckload of kokeshi.
Yeah. And
And-
she's like trying to tell you about her whole backstory and past
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. Which you're excited to listen to because she's an
Yeah.
interesting person, but you actually have like, you know, some kind of like secret board meeting for the like, I don't know, some other subcultures group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got some other shit to see.
I think that would be quite interesting. Like if you're like excited to like discover a party where there's like people doing unfamiliar things.
Yeah.
It seems like it's actually like kind of a scene or something.
I feel like
yeah.
there'd be a lot of animals for some reason.
Yeah.
Like people are like bringing their lizards to a party or
Peacocks.
something. Yeah, I don't know.
I
weird
was
shit.
I was sort of like visualizing animals and things too. Like I felt like people would be rocking up with
The peacock has a little cape.
peacock with
Yeah.
a cape. Yeah,
Costumes.
costumes
Yeah.
on
Tasteful
animals and stuff.
costumes
on
for
animals.
Tasteful
But they're
pet
not these little like
costumes. Yeah.
cute, like trying
No,
to be cute.
no.
Like
It's a statement piece for
they're
your
like
peacock.
meant not to please the human. They're meant to like embellish the animal.
Right. Yeah.
You
Interesting. I like that.
Like all dog clothes. Have you ever seen dog clothes? It's just like
Yeah, it's
oh,
embarrassing, and the dog's embarrassed.
The dog's embarrassed.
The dog
does
feels
not like
deep,
it.
deep shame.
Yeah.
of,
as they should.
As they should. Yeah.
It's sad, but it's true.
So I think these are interesting avenues that I feel like the more we talk about this and the more we kind of like conceptualize this happening, like the more we can kind of like move into that space maybe. Or
Yeah.
I don't think the difference between conceptualizing it and actually experiencing it is necessarily that great or that different.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's true.
Well, so what was interesting was as you two were riffing back and forth, like I could feel myself being pulled there mentally as well.
Right,
Yeah.
And I'm sure the listener maybe could feel that as well, right? So it's like there is
Hopefully,
a collective projection that is possible, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
I
mean,
see
that's-
more house parties in Eiko.
Yeah.
I see them.
I kept getting like scenes of like things happening in like kind of like parks and like more minor stations.
I like that.
You know, like going to like almost like a Saitama station, but there's like a monstrous huge park,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just like all the cool people from the city have just decided to like go there on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like battle of the scenes.
Yeah.
So you have like different little encampments in the same park.
Yeah.
And there's like different scenes that maybe don't even really fuck with each other that much, but they're just, for whatever reason, like this park is like the place to be.
Yeah.
So like it's just all happening in the same park, but there's different little,
And people are just
corners
mingling and
and-
running around.
yeah, there's different
and,
areas.
like-
And there's like little kids running around.
like random
and-
circles kind of
Yeah.
popping up, like those like big conversation circles, you know?
yeah, that's sort of what was happening. And like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe people are like passing around joints or something, or like
Yeah,
just chilling
dude.
and like having some food or drinks or
Mhm.
something. And no one's like too into their phones or anything. They're just maybe
Yeah, they're just chilling.
they're just kind of chilling in reality.
There's
with,
no like insane picture taking.
yeah,
People have like cameras though.
yeah.
like real cameras.
Yeah, and they're like maybe taking some actual group shots, but not like weird selfies or something, or like
Yeah. But if there are selfies, at least they're tasteful
yeah,
and they're fun. They add to the energy. They don't
mm.
subtract.
Yeah,
You know, which is a real problem with like the chronic selfie.
yeah. I
situation.
got like I try to do almost like a remote viewing thing where I was like just trying to pick up random scenes and like. So there's a few scenes in like these kind of like parks and like Inaka stations or out of the way stations, and like there's also definitely some in these like big warehouse buildings with like parties on multiple floors and like different interesting things happening on different floors of the same building, kind of going up and down and seeing what was playing out there.
Yeah, the abandoned building parties. Those are pretty big. Yeah. And you just get like a huge scene of people. I feel like that would be like where you would see these kind of subcultures like appear.
Right, yeah.
And that's like where they'd manifest at their most raw is in these like abandoned spaces where they're truly free to like just go crazy. It's usually going to be tied to some kind of music, so they'd be able to just fucking blast it. And it'd be basically free to enter.
Yeah, if you just knew it was happening and
yeah,
could,
but that's the price of entry is the knowledge.
You just have to know what's happening.
You have to be in the scene to know.
Yeah,
but it's not hard to get in the scene. You just need to participate and show up.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, like that's kind of place where I get interested is like what is the kind of gap between kind of conceptualizing something and then actually having it take off or having it happen. I mean, I'm just always thinking of this space of like what would it mean to like create some even music or something, even create some sort of new musical concept or yeah, like literary concept, which I always think about doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that have created some of these. We mentioned that London Night Cafe,
right?
Where this guy has tried to create like a Neo Decadent venue, according to that manifesto's book, and it actually does exist, right? So you can go to this venue in London, which is quite well designed and has like interesting nooks and spaces to like explore and kind of do stuff. So yeah, I think it's I think that space between imagining these things and actually having them come into being is maybe not that great, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What would you like to see in Eiko?
Well, so my initial take was Tokyo is decidedly not Eiko.
Yeah.
In terms of central Tokyo vibes, unfortunately.
Well, true.
Which, I don't know. Like, and the other thing I noticed, I mean, how much is Eiko is just the absence of smartphones and the absence of TikTok and the presence and awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like people actively engaging in their surrounding, in their life, really, rather than trying to distract themselves, which, I mean, seems such like a prevalent force right now where everyone's trying to, distract themselves from I don't know, being packed into a train like sardines, kind of. That's a pretty archetypal Tokyo rush hour experience that dominates the day-to-day life of a lot of people, right? I mean, there's just one of my gripes is just how much energy, how much time goes into feeding this capitalist machine, I guess. Where, I mean, like why does it feel like my health is something I try and squeeze in after work before I go to bed rather than like my primary focus throughout the day, right? Like, I don't know, things are backwards. We're deep into some dysfunctional experiment, it seems, and it's time for something different. And well, we need to imagine it, I guess, right? Like what does that actually look like, right? But you need people willing to imagine it first, right? Where, I mean, like how I wonder how many people are like what we're discussing, how actively, is it considered by, random Japanese people we come across in our age bracket.
Yeah.
Like how strongly do they feel this? Because I bumped into this human a while ago, probably over a year ago, but she was telling me how she wanted to become like a office worker in Japan, basically. And she was like half, I believe. I think she was like in between two cultures, and like I just couldn't wrap my mind around why she should
want to become a office worker.
Yeah, like it just seems like such a like miserable. Yeah, I mean, okay, they have a uniform. It's the dullest uniform possible, complete with little like blunt tipped low heel shoes that are just a complete absence of a statement, basically, right? So my point is just there's people still who are moving into that direction, right? And like, are they influenced by some Japanese Netflix office drama?
I'm sure they are, man. Yeah, I'm sure they're. Well, I mean, again, like I think like there's a sense in which like corporations exist to advertise themselves, right? So, I think what increasingly like what passes for fiction and drama and kind of expressions of all kinds sort of just is advertisements for the existing infrastructure. And I would certainly include, Netflix and all these things in that, which is one reason I don't have it. Or I mean, I don't have TikTok either, or any of these things. But so yeah, I think a lot of people are certainly going to be swayed by these sorts of advertisements for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, so how do you capture the attention? So like to launch sort of a culture like this, you do need the founders of it who are willing to push into that unknown for a while, probably, right? I mean, just thinking back to recent experience of trying to build a community around a podcast, right? Like it momentum builds, and I'm confident that the message will reach the right people who will want to engage with it. And yeah, like start kind of growing those tendrils that expand outwards and multiply. But yeah, it's hard work, right?
It is hard work, yeah. And eventually I think you end up with a lot of ungrateful people. So again, like Will, like I guess just like speeding forward in time, like maybe 5-10 years have elapsed, and all of these 16-year-olds that you were influencing so strongly are now in their mid-20s, and they're like all these ideas that Will handed to us, we're starting to find them problematic, and we're starting to rebel. So how do you think you would manage these rebellious youths that got all of their ideas from you? Any once they reach this little let's pick problematic holes in Will space where they're almost like over influenced by you, do you think you would
You know what? I'd let them go crazy, because I don't know. At that point, what can I do? Am I gonna fucking rein them in? Am I the subculture police?
Yeah.
I don't fucking care. I would go off and do my own shit, and people who would agree with what I wanted to say, they would come with me. And people who think that I'm being problematic and have something want to cancel my ass, I guess, within the context of the subculture, I'd say, okay, fuck you, like, bye.
Do you think
make your own shit?
Do you think there's a sense in which like cancellation is just like an expression of like love or obsession? Like that's an idea I've been playing with recently, which
I like that. Yeah.
Which is sort of like actual expressions of like devotion or like admiration have become so stilted that like
interesting. It's like John Lennon killer type.
Yeah. So
it also brings to mind the kind of idea of female obsession with true crime, and kind of like the serial killer actually being like a very romantic sort of thing,
right?
For someone feels so strongly so as to kill someone, right?
Yeah.
Please continue.
Well, yeah, no, I think that it is, and like, I mean, we see a lot of like women getting canceled too, and like, I think it does tend to manifest as sort of like almost like an obsession or like sort of a I don't know, like inept means of trying to interact with someone, either communicate with them or interact with them, but only being able to do it in this sort of
negative way, right?
Toxic way, or like sort of aborted way of trying to like influence them by trying to bring them down in a very kind of obsessive or calculated way. So there's a sense that like if you're not getting canceled, are you really connecting? Are you really connecting with people?
Your audience?
It's sort of like, are you even
trying?
Are you even trying? Like, are you even connecting with your audience if you're not?
Good
if
question.
you're not incurring this sort of level of
well,
engagement?
It depends on what you're getting canceled for. But I think that if you're not pushing the line, you should be like you should be a little bit like getting threatened a little bit.
Yeah.
You should be like, not like this guy raped me and 50 other women. Like, you don't want to get that is obviously
that's a bridge too far.
That's like not
what
we're talking about.
Excluding clear
like
criminal activities. I mean, like,
but it's like this guy did something uncomfortable. Like, this guy like slapped me in public. Like,
right, yeah.
I don't know, like whatever. Like, this guy said something awful, and I disagree with what he said, and it's just insane what he said. Like, I feel like that's more on the line that you should be pulling,
Yeah.
Because you got to be pushing the boundaries of the culture.
Yeah, I think about this a lot too, and I think like the concept of like future passeists, which is what we mean by the people that might be trying to cancel you 10 years from now because you influence them too much, and they're like, like we admired Will when we were stupid teens, but now we see that he's actually quite problematic, right? So I think that's some other thing is like trying to preemptively address quite whack actions from people in the future, which I always think about as well. Possibly by writing letters to them in advance, or addressing things to them in advance.
What am I
would
thinking
threaten
of?
them.
Yeah.
I would start now. I would threaten them. Yeah. I know what you're writing. I know what you're about to say. Yeah. I'm just telling you now that if you do that, I'm going to kill you.
So I'm
going to fuck your mom.
You'd prepare time release threats in advance.
Like, I'm letting you know. Like,
I'm letting you know I'm going to,
No, it's like the movie where they can like see the crimes that are happening in the future.
Oh, like the precog.
Minority Report.
Minority Report.
Yeah,
like, I know, like, listen, you're not aware yet, but in 2 years, you're going to say some shit.
Yeah.
Before you consider this, I want you to understand that I'm threatening you.
Yeah.
And if you release that, I will make good on that.
I think, like, are you threatening them, or are you sort of like almost like a ghost of Christmas past or something, where you're like, you're sort of trying to warn them in advance of whack things they may do in the future, entirely through their own sincerity. I think that's sort of the Christmas Carol thing, is that, like, Scrooge thinks he's on the right track until the ghosts rock up and sort of show him, what's to come, or something. Right.
That's true.
What happens when you continue along this path?
That's a much better answer than what I gave. Thank you for correcting me.
I mean, even though I think it's kind of the same, I think it kind of amounts to the same thing in a way. But But yeah, just one thing I'd like to.
They did threaten him. They said, "You will die."
Yeah,
they put him in a coffin.
If you continue. Yeah.
That was gonna fall into hell.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll have sex with your mom after you die.
Yeah,
they squeezed that in right at the end. It was very quiet.
Like,
I don't blame it.
Falling into the hell.
Carol,
like ghost, like the Grim Reaper, fucking his mom.
So there's definitely an element of threat in that narrative, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely quite.
That's true.
Quite threatening.
Interesting, yeah. Indirectly.
That's true.
Yeah.
We just accepted because they were ghosts, but they had some kind of like divine connection.
If they're simply like stylistic consultants or something,
we would be like, okay, bye.
This is whack. Like, these guys are just threatening this poor man.
This is crazy. You guys are getting paid for this? This is insane.
Yeah.
You know, like the maybe movie trope of the posthumous, like, self-taped video on like the VCR.
Oh yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like if
in
you're
horror
watching
movies and
this,
stuff, yeah, if you're watching
I
this,
love
yeah,
that.
then that means that I did not, make it
I did
out
not
of.
succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I know I'm just laughing about this idea of
Yeah.
like meticulously cataloging all
Yeah.
possible branches
Have
of
you ever
like
have you ever thought about like doing that to people at your workplace? Like you just like one day you just like don't show up to work, but you email everyone a video that starts out with "If you're watching this, then then you like
then I'm
go
on
into-
vacation
then
in
you
the
go into-
Bahamas.
Well, no, like how much of a shaggy dog story do you think you could spin it as and like keep them on the edge of their seats until they like figure out what's actually happening? Like if you're watching this, then I obviously did not succeed in containing Bo, and you just like spin some elaborate story that would
What's the
Yeah.
punchline? Where
Well, I don't
does
know,
this
like,
go? I guess
I guess just like as with any shaggy dog story,
mm,
it's just like, oh, by the way, I'm just actually sick or something, right?
right.
But I think it'd be something you could definitely play around with to see where it would go.
Yeah, I would need to have a financial independence first, I think, before I'd feel
To
comfortable.
take a day off, yeah.
Yeah.
How are we doing for time here?
Yeah, probably can land this hour 15, I guess.
Any last words here? Any closing remarks on any of this? Or
Stop before you buy. Okay, stop and think, and don't buy online. Just like don't do it. Just go in person.
including Mercari?
Well, that's a little bit different, but like just reduce your spending. Like seriously, like the buying like 5-6 things a month is crazy.
In terms of
Crazy.
clothes or
Clothes, like you do not need fucking 5-6 new pieces of clothing a month. Seriously.
Commit to less, but own it.
Commit to less and buy
Commit to
shit
less, but
that
own it.
you
Yeah.
actually really like. Dedicate some time to wear some clothes. Like fuck, like no one like Tokyo's such a great city for clothes. Seriously, it's amazing what people wear here. But every time I go home, I'm so fucking saddened by what people are wearing, man. It's so sad. It's actually depressing.
Oh, but by home you mean?
Like North America.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. No one is going to dispute.
And even in Tokyo,
yeah.
there's still so much room for improvement. Seriously, especially
Yeah.
among foreigners. And it's like what are we doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you wearing these clothes in the first place? What are you trying to say about
I
yourself?
feel that every day, man. I mean, I certainly experience that every time I leave the house, at least once or twice a day.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like, what's going on here? But
It needs to be asked, because if you don't ask, then
Yeah.
you don't even have the conception that there's a problem.
yeah,
And I say it with all the love in the world, but things could be a lot better.
things could be a lot better.
It's unfortunate, but
Should
it's
we,
true.
Should we leave it at that?
let's-
Things
yeah.
could be better.
things could be better.
Aim
and
higher,
Let's
aim higher.
imagine them better.
Be better.
Be better.
And okay, signing off. Will D Pelletier on Instagram. Do you want to spell that out again?
Will D Pelletier. Pelletier. Thank you.
At Instagram.
That's
On Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Justin Isis 93 Instagram.
DBLV Instagram. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Great.
I'm
Have a good
falling
week.
asleep here. Good night.
Peace.